Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us for the third in our series of FDIN Jobs webinars. Tonight, we're running an interview masterclass on how to prepare, perform, and follow up. Previous webinars we've run have helped you with creating a standout CV and perfecting your LinkedIn profile. You can catch up with these on our YouTube channel. So hopefully now you're through the door and you're about to have your first interview. So we're here tonight to help you make the best of your opportunity to impress. We're hosting this webinar in conjunction with Sam Waterfall, founder of Obvious Candidate, and amongst other things, careers counselling expert and Amazon bestseller. The webinar is scheduled to take no more than an hour, and we really hope you find it of value. And we'd obviously welcome any feedback you've got when it's finished. We'll also be sending on a recording of the webinar over the next few days. So just before we start, and to make sure everything's working as it should, I'm just going to ask a couple of questions. You can reply using the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen. And please do use this chat box throughout the webinar. So I'll be moderating throughout the event and pushing your questions forward to Sam. So just before we start, if you can just fill in on the chat box on the right-hand side whereabouts in the country or indeed the world you may be dialing in from. Just type your answers here, and they do take a few seconds to come through to me. So forgive me if there's a little delay, but if you can, right, Sam, I know you're in Thailand, that's fantastic. Anybody else? Last time I think we did this, our furthest away was, we had New Zealand and we've had South Carolina. Alicia's in Northwest England, welcome. We've had South Carolina, we've had France, we've had Algiers, east of England we've got, Wales, fantastic. It's very UK based at the moment, clearly.
I wonder if Emily's on the line.
We've got Leicester, oh, Cambridge, Hearts, Yorkshire.
Evening, Simon. Good to see you there. Welcome. Hi, Marie. Hi, Deep. Hello.
Excellent. Clearly very UK-based night. That's fantastic. Thank you, everyone. And we're going to be doing some polls. Oh, we've got Troy and Devon as well. Fantastic. We're going to be doing some polls throughout the evening as well. So just to try those out, here's a quick one so I can find out what kind of job category you're currently working in. Hey, Richie, Aylesbury, near me, very good. So what kind of job category are you currently working in? Sam's going to put that poll live now. Oh, we have a French lady. Hello, Marianne. So Sam, have you put the poll live?
Should be visible now.
Great. So if you just tick the category that you're in, your job currently fits in. Super. So we've got some sales and category management people, some brand and marketing, packaging, strategy, insight and innovation, nutrition and regulatory. Excellent. Thank you very much. We've got a nice spread across there, across strategy, insight and innovation, nutrition, sales and category management, brand and marketing, some process and technology, and some packaging. Fabulous. We're very well represented across the board. Excellent. Thank you. And finally, just a question we're going to be revealing the answer to later in the webinar. How many interviews do you think it will take you to land your next job? Sam's going to load that poll up now, I hope. How many interviews do you think it will take to land your next job? Okay. Super, thank you. So we've got, oh, no, answers finally coming in, pretty even spread again. Okay, we've got 7 and 17 neck and neck, and 27 following closely behind. Great, well, we'll reveal the answers to that later in the poll. Thank you very much, everybody. So we've got all the technology working. So I'm going to do a quick introduction to myself and Sam. I'm going to take you through a little bit about what FDIN Jobs does, who we are and what we do. And then I'm going to hand over to Sam, who's going to take you through the meat of the presentation. We're going to be doing some polls. And it's going to be very interactive again. So ask any questions you have, please, throughout the evening. Then Sam's going to be taking you through a special offer that we have for any people who've joined tonight. And finally, we just love your feedback on what our next webinar should be about. So here's a little introduction to us both. You can see nice pictures of me and Sam here. If you were present in one of our broadcasts recently, you've learned about a new tool called Photo Feeler, where you can put your photograph up and people can vote as to which is your best profile picture for business. And apparently this one was mine and the one below was Sam's, but we're actually going to flick over to where Sam currently is now, and that's Sam now because he's in Thailand. So there you go, you can see us in all our glory. So a little bit of background on me. My background is primarily in brands and marketing. I've worked client side, I've worked agency side, I've worked freelance side. I've worked on all sorts of things from diamonds to pawnbroking and bread making, flour to bras. And I joined the FDIN back in December 2014 to take them through the rebrand and also to help launch the careers portal. Sam is founder of Obvious Candidate. Obvious Candidate is a specialist consultancy focused on positioning ambitious job seekers for the right next job at the best possible salary. So he is the absolute perfect person to be taking you through this tonight. Oh, we just lost Sam briefly.
Don't worry, I'm still here.
Good. We've just lost your chart, Sam.
I'm getting you the visual back. Keep talking, Jane. I'll be right back.
Okay. Lovely. Sam is best-selling author of the Amazon Kindle book, The 7 Essential CV Upgrades. And he's been working on guiding careers since 2003. His clients include Fortune 500 C-level board executives, 100 directors, CEOs, senior managers, lawyers, finance professionals, consultants, graduates, and students. So he's worked really right across the gamut, from the most junior to the most senior of people. Sam, how are we doing on your pictures? Ah, perfect. Just in the right time. You can flick me forward, thank you. Okay, so a quick little bit of background as the FDIN Jobs, who we are and what we do. The FDIN Jobs is part of the Food and Drink Innovation Network, which is a 12-year-old professional association. We specialise in running events for people in the food and drink industry. We have 20,000 professional food and drink innovation members in the UK. It's free to join. So if you would like to join, make sure you just sign up on our website. We produce breaking news stories 5 times a day, every day, on all aspects of food and drink innovation, and we've probably broken around 21,000 of them since we've been live. Sam, that's great, thank you. So we launched FDIN Jobs back in October of last year, and we've already become the number 1 in natural search for food and drink innovation jobs. We're really specialists, so we're not about every job across the board. We're about focus and niche. So we have 9 job categories, really focused to food and drink innovation specialists in the UK, because that's the space that we understand, and we want to make it really easy for people who work within our space to find great jobs. So we've got 9 categories on everything from strategy, insight and innovation, to sales and category management, brand and marketing, process and technology, packaging, and so on. And we have jobs at all levels across the spectrum, right from graduate and apprentice, right the way through and up to director level. So it's all about niche and helping you find the kind of jobs that you want. I think the other important thing to know about us is that 95% of the jobs that we have on our site are direct from corporates. So they are going to be companies that you can apply to directly rather than going through recruitment agencies. We all know how arduous the task is applying to jobs, and we want you to feel assured that the jobs that you apply for are real jobs with real companies, rather than perhaps recruitment agencies where the job may not genuinely exist. And we've worked with a fantastic range of brands, even in the short time that we've been live. Over 120 companies have advertised with us, right across the spectrum. So some very much consumer-facing brands here, plus suppliers, providers, manufacturers across the board. And thank you, Sam. Can you flip over? Just two last points to make before I hand over to Sam. If you are in the process of job seeking, there are a couple of things I just wanted to draw your attention to. One is that if you're looking for a job, please do sign up for our free job alerts. This means that every time we have a job on the site that is relevant to you, we will send you an email about it. You won't get hundreds of jobs, you'll get just the jobs that are relevant and targeted to the kind of thing you are looking for. And secondly, when you do, you will receive a download to a fantastic guide that we've written, Accelerating Your Food and Drink Industry Job Search. It's been written in conjunction with Sam, and it's a couple of top tips and information about how to get the job you want as quickly as possible. So that's a brief introduction from me. I'm going to hand you over to Sam now, who's going to take you through an excellent half an hour on preparing you for your next interview.
Thank you very much, Jane. I just want to check that everybody can hear me clearly. If you can just type into the chat box before we get started. Hopefully you can hear me. Just let me know if you can hear me. Just type a yes in or say, hi Sam, I can hear you. And then we will get started. So thank you, Jane, for the introduction.
My pleasure. I can hear you perfectly.
Very good. Good to know.
Oh, good. We're getting lots of yeses.
Brilliant. Fantastic. All right, everybody. Well, I've also got a few polls for you as well. It's really helpful for me to know where you are up to in your search. So let me sort of ask you a couple of questions as well. We'll try and keep this nice and interactive. My intention, I don't know about you, I've been to lots of seminars, lots of webinars, and sometimes they're very interesting, but sometimes they're useful. And my intention for you with this session this evening is to really make it as useful as possible. And so if you've got questions, if something sort of sparks an idea in your mind, then please, ask the question, type it into the chat box here. Jane's fabulous at moderating these webinars, so she will be checking that and she will sort of feed your question through to me as we go. So just to get started, let's take a little question here. I'm interested how far through you are at the moment with your job search. So let's take a look at that. Where are you up to with your job search at the moment? Are you thinking about starting? Are you starting now? Are you in the early months? 4 to 6 months in, or maybe you've been searching for longer than that?
Someone's actually ticked the not searching. This is just better than TV box. That's brilliant.
We will really hope to live up to that. So it looks like most of you sort of, you're well into the job search, which I guess is what we'd expect with a topic like this. So you've perhaps taken a few interviews. So that's great. Good to know you're well into it. So if you want, let us know how it's going. How are the interviews going so far? I'm just going to ask you one more question here on the poll. So let's check. This one's about interview preparation. So where are you with your interview preparation? Do they always offer you the job? You're pretty confident. Your interview technique could be improved. Your interview technique needs some serious help. Or you're so nervous you can't even concentrate. Good. I'll just end that. Hopefully, you'll be able to see the result on this. So vote now if you're going to vote. We've got quite a lot of results in there, so I'm just going to end that one. It looks like most people thinking they could do with a little bit of improvement on their interview technique. So that's what this is really all about. So that's good. Right. Well, let me jump into the presentation, and what we'll do is help you through this. Now, what's coming up in the next 45 minutes is really some very tried, tested, and proven approaches. It comes from my book, which is called Hired, The Essential Guide to Interview Success. And it really covers three very important topics: how to prepare, how to perform, and how to follow up. So I'm going to start with my single best piece of interview advice. And if you just follow that, you can transform the performance. But then we'll get into the real detail of how for you to go ahead and really improve. And a very often missed closing interview step. So we'll be looking at that towards the end of the session. And that can make a big difference as well. Also how to follow up. And then a special offer if you're looking for more help as well, so that we can continue helping you. I'll have a Q&A session at the end, but if you have got questions, as I've said, on the way through, do put them into the chat box, and Jane will sort of moderate those, and hopefully we'll get some answers to you to answer all your questions. I can hang around at the end as well, so we don't need to finish instantly. If you've got questions, we will try to answer them. So here it is, the best piece of interview advice. And it's this: stop thinking like a job candidate and start thinking like the hiring manager. And when you think about this, I hope that is a very logical way to think, because so often we can be so nervous thinking about being a candidate and am I good enough? And that's not the way to go in at all, because actually, really, when you think about this, no one has got a salary that they are looking to give you. No one has got money that they're just looking to pay out. You know that if you've ever run a team or run a department, you actually have not a job, you have a pile of tasks which are perhaps sort of building up on a desk somewhere near you if somebody has left. You are desperate to get somebody into that role. Someone is desperate to hire you. They are looking to fill that role. And what you need to do is demonstrate that you are the obvious candidate. And that's really what this entire process is all about. It's no good at being a dithering, nervous candidate. What we really want is someone who can come in and solve the problems that are building up on that desk. So I really hope that makes sense. And if you can put yourself into the shoes of that poor hiring manager, that person who is trying to fill that role, be the person that they are looking for, and the job can be yours. And it really is that much simpler than going in there thinking, am I good enough? Which is not really the way to be thinking. You need to be confident you're good enough. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to be actually applying for that role. So I hope that's clear. Take that mindset into the interview. That will serve you very, very well. So 3 steps, a very simple visual here to take you through this. If you follow these 3 steps, you will find that your interview performance is significantly improved. The first one is very simple: prepare. But most people are under-preparing. And I cannot emphasize how badly under-preparation actually looks, how bad that looks for most people. So here's how to go about doing that preparation properly to give yourself the very best chance. So it's a slow process, this preparation. Don't expect just to have a quick think through in the hours before your interview. This is something that you should be doing and taking very, very seriously. You've perhaps heard the expression that getting a job is a full-time job, and that couldn't be more true when it comes to preparation. So here are some steps as to how to exactly go about doing that. Failing to plan is planning to fail, and that's very, very clear. So the first thing is actually knowing your why. Are you really wanting to apply to this job, and is it the right one for you? Why do you want this particular job? And to get some real clarity on that. If you're not that interested, it's really not worth applying. So it's another big problem that we see in job searches, where people are scattergunning applications left and right, rather than really putting time into their interview, or the application and then the interview planning. People don't want to spend enough time actually planning when they have really been putting the detail into too few different directions. But the problem is not enough focus. It's very, very important to know your why at the very beginning. The next thing that comes up from this is knowing what to expect about the process. And very often, and you'll find this, of course, on the FDIN Jobs website, they will tell you about what they want from you as you go through. So whether it's a CV, whether it's an online application form, how many interviews there will be. So very important to know what to expect in the process before you actually get started. Nextly, to know about the job itself. And of course, very often you get a job description, but not always, especially if you're applying to a smaller business. So sometimes it's important to actually phone up, to actually contact the people, and to know exactly what the role really requires. Next is to know about the organization and the company. And I really believe that you can spend 5 or 6 hours looking at just this. There's so many aspects to knowing about the organization and the company. And this is the, of course, knowing about their products and services. You know, one of the worst things we hear at an interview is where someone says, oh yes, I was going to have a look at your website. I was going to have a look at your website. It's not good enough. You know, you need to know their website inside out. You need to know their products, their brands, their services. But that's not enough either. You need to really know their competition. Who are they up against in the marketplace? And what might they have launched, or what might their competitors have launched in terms of new products or new services recently? What's the news? What's going off in terms of what they told the world recently? Have they launched any new television commercials? What other marketing are they doing? If you're not looking into the detail, you're really not looking deep enough when it comes to an interview and knowing the business. Also, these days...
Can I just say one thing here? It's just worth knowing that a quick plug for us here is that we carry on our site about 12 years worth of news content, which you can search through. So you can look at news articles we've written, and you can also look at speakers' presentations. So when we run the events, we actually put downloads of all the speakers' presentation notes up on the site, so you can actually go through all of the events and download and have a look at topics that may be of interest for an interview that you've got coming up, and that's all free of charge, so it's just worth knowing about.
Definitely, and just research far and wide on the company, because you're not just trying to be a candidate, you're trying to be the obvious candidate. And nothing's going to look worse than being woefully underprepared when it comes to answering questions. You've just got to know that detail. Social these days is very important as well. What is the company putting out there in terms of its social media? Is there any backlash? A few companies have famously had people campaigning against them, partly due to use of ingredients, partly due to some practices. You need to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. What are you really getting into? It may mean that you want to not work for that organization if the values aren't aligned to your own. So really think hard about this. Remember that the interview is a two-way process, something that you're actually testing the company for as well as them testing you. Again, this is about thinking like the hiring manager. You're effectively hiring that company to be your employer. So really think hard on that one. Also, know every detail of your CV or your application. You may have been sending out multiple CVs, multiple applications. Make sure you have obviously tailored those when you're sending them out. But that means, of course, that you need to know the detail of the CV you have sent to this particular company that you'll be interviewing with. Now, they may or may not use your CV or your application as the heart of interview number one. It's not usually the heart of later interviews. But very often, they might be asking you questions directly from either your application or from your CV. So if you've tailored, make sure you are taking the right one along. And it's a really good best practice, by the way, to turn up with not just one copy, but multiple copies of your CV. Imagine if you were to not do that, if you were to sit down at interview number one and they, as you start, invite you to get out your CV for them to take a look at. Now, they should have it, of course. But it's not unheard of that someone's been put on the spot like that. It looks very, very controlled, very organized if you can just reach into your portfolio, reach into your bag and pull out 2 pristine copies of your CV, one for the interviewer, one for yourself, maybe even take an extra one. There could be 2 interviewers in the room. And that way you are completely in control of your process and you're going to be looking very calm rather than having sort of failed the first test in the interview. When you're preparing, think about the 2-minute rule. The 2-minute rule is very, very important. When you're speaking at an interview, the last thing you want is for it to become a monologue. And you notice that within this session, I purposefully asked Jane to keep interrupting me so that you don't just get my voice all the way through. But when you're interviewing, when you're answering those questions, try to keep your answers down to 2 minutes or less, because it gives the interviewer a chance to speak as well. It keeps your answers at the same time very nice and concise. Know your answers to standard questions. We're going to look at these in some detail in this session. Really, really important to have those prepared and well prepared. You would be amazed how difficult it is as soon as you get into an interview situation to actually get your words out in a good order. That's everybody, by the way. I work with students who are just beginning their career, and I also work with very senior execs, and the senior execs struggle with this in just the same way. It's not an easy thing to do, it's not natural, so practicing, we even do mock interviews with many of our clients, and that really does help. It means that you can make the mistakes with those words before you get into the real event. Know how to deal with the random questions. I'll come on to this later on, but sometimes you get a question from the left field and you just think, where's that come from? And sometimes you don't know the answer. So it's about being ready to deal with that. Very important. Rehearse your answer.
You know, sometimes people, it used to be the habit that companies would ask really bizarre questions like, if you were in a movie, what star would represent you, or what's your favourite animal? Is that still the sort of practice of things these days, and the preparation you've helped candidates with?
Well, whether it's best practice or whether it's just sometimes it happens, the fact is sometimes those questions happen. Google are quite famous for this. They had super questions like, why is a manhole cover round? How do you feel about that one, Jane? Does anyone know the answer to that?
I think I'd raise a quizzical eyebrow and then say, so whatever shape, you can probably squeeze your way through it.
There's actually a number of answers to this. I'm not sure if anyone's going to be the right answer here. If you can imagine, what's a manhole cover made of? It's made of really, really sort of hard steel, and that's heavy. So it's a lot easier to move around cover on your own if you were taking this off as someone who is going to be working in the road. And so that's very important for moving it. The other thing is that you can't drop a round cover through the hole, whereas you could do a square if you put it on a diagonal. If someone's underneath there, you really don't want to be dropping that thing on their head. So there's a number of reasons. The point is, of course, Google don't want you to really be doing a huge. Anna's got the answer right. Well done. The point is, they don't want to know the answer to this. They want to know how you're thinking. That's what's really behind these kind of questions. There's another one, which is, you know, how many jelly babies would it take to fill a London double-decker bus? And again, no one needs to know the answer to this. What they're interested in is, what's your thinking process? And also, do you get phased in an interview? Because, you know, sometimes the answer would be, do you know what, I would Google that. But the other answer, of course, would be to very simply say, well, let me work out how many jelly babies would fit into maybe a Coke bottle, a 2-litre bottle, and then how many 2-litre bottles would fit around the driver's section, and then, you know, the rest of the downstairs, and then upstairs. They just want to know the way that you're thinking. And you know, sometimes people just go to pieces on this. They can't think of it. They don't know the answer. There's no wrong or right. So even if you were going to phone a friend who was, you know, working in jelly babies or working on the buses, you know, there's lots of different ways that you can start talking to get to an answer. So that's really important. The point with the random questions is not to get thrown by them. As I said there as well, also rehearse your answers out loud. So really make sure you've done this. Now, if you are living with your family or you're in shared accommodation, it can be embarrassing, of course, but absolutely worth doing. Find yourself a quiet room with a mirror and make sure you can say your answers in full out loud. Of course, this isn't about knowing them word for word. That's not what I'm talking about. That looks very, very, very false. But it's about knowing the facts in the right order and being able to say those words articulately. Know what you're going to wear as well in terms of preparation. If you've got this planned a few days in advance and really thought this through, it removes a lot of the stress. And it's about appropriateness these days. It used to be very much that it was always suits. In some parts of the industry these days, it is appropriate to be more casual, and that's okay. But usually you don't go wrong. It may be that you choose not to wear a tie, but usually a a suit with a shirt is quite a good smart approach. It may be that you try to tie, gentlemen, on that. But err on the side of conservative and smart, and think about the old idea of dressing for the next position up. That's usually a good rule of thumb.
And is it all right Sam, is it all right to ask, say somebody's invited you, if it's like a PA or somebody who's fixing up your interview, is it all right just to maybe ask them and ask them what the dress code is, perhaps?
I think it is okay, but it shows, and I think perhaps if you're speaking to the PA, then that's all right, to be able to do that, just to get a feel for what's their office dress code. Because sometimes as well, I mean, there was that, of course, that dress down Friday thing, so work out what's going on. Your main challenge is to be appropriate to their business, and not looking to sort of stand out, because overdoing it, of course, can be as bad as underdoing it. Always on the side of being more formal and smarter. You can always remove a jacket. You know, you can always dress an outfit down once you arrive, if appropriate. It's far better to turn up looking smart and then be able to remove a jacket or sort of dress down slightly once you arrive. But really, you're looking to create an impression of someone who is going to fit in. That's what's really important. And knowing where you're going to go as well is hugely important. There's few things more stressful than running late for an interview. And some companies, some individuals will end your process there and then for being late. That's not unheard of. Sometimes it's absolutely out of your control, but the point is, if you really want that interview, it's within your control. And that might mean that you travel there the night before, and that you sort of wake up within striking distance of that workplace. But also, I've done this recently where I was going for a meeting at a big company, and they've got multiple sites in one city. So sometimes you think you're going to get in a taxi and go to their main office, and their main office could be clear in your taxi driver's mind. You need to be crystal clear which of their offices, which of their facilities you're going to, so that you can get that spot on right. Just please don't underestimate that one, because it's a terrible way to fall out of a process that you've worked so hard to get that far with. And another really nice touch to be an obvious candidate is to phone ahead to confirm. So if your interview is on the Monday, phone it on the Friday just to confirm. It can be equally as helpful for them as it is for you. If it's been booked several weeks or months ahead, as has to be the case sometimes, it could be put incorrectly in somebody's diary. So just checking the location, who you're meeting with, and also where that will be, very, very important. Any more questions, Jane, in the chat box coming up from that?
No, but please do feel free to put them in here, and I'll pass them on to Sam as we go. So if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat box on the right-hand side. Thank you.
So now what we're going to do is move on to how to prepare your winning answers. And this is a very robust process. There's an interview sort of question called the competency-based question, which is that classic question when someone asks you, can you tell me about a time when? And then they want to know something specific. And this is how to go about preparing for those. So 4 steps. The first one is to review the job description and list all of the key skills, behaviors, and knowledge that they want. So you look through the job description that they are listing about the job, find out all of the things they're wanting. That's the first step. The next thing then is to go through your CV, and you can obviously think beyond your CV as well. Start assigning examples of the best times that you have demonstrated those particular skills. So one particular question could be, can you give an example of a time when you've led a team through unexpected or difficult situations to achieve an outstanding result? That kind of question. So the best thing that you can do, of course, is list multiple examples of this. You really want to have at least one example. If they're looking for leadership, if they're looking for teamwork, they might be looking for food industry expertise, they might be looking for crisis management, all kinds of things like that. So make sure you've got your examples alongside each one. Just to focus your mind a little bit, I used to work at P&G, and at P&G they were really all about leadership, and they actually asked for 7 examples of leadership. So for the most important skills that they are looking for, don't undercook this. Don't think, oh, well, I've got 2 or 3 examples, that will be enough. Because as a couple of interviewers, they just grill their candidates to go, tell me another example, and tell me another example of that, and give me another example. So really make sure you've got plenty of examples up your sleeve as to exactly how you did this. The third step is, from here, the third step is actually to get the detail behind that. And what I recommend is a model I call the CAR model. That means context, actions that you took, and the wow results that you achieved. So this CAR model gives you a very simple way of framing your answer. And even if you just remember context, actions, results, and you don't have an example to mind, it will help you shape your answer in that heat of interview pressure. Now, the context is really important. It's the bit here that most people overlook. It's so important for you to give clear context. Just imagine your interviewer. They are a busy person. They've got all their home life going on. They may have reached your interview from a big meeting prior to that in the office. They may have their boss on their back. They may have all kinds of lots of pressures. And they come into your interview and suddenly you're supposed to wow them. In the back of their mind, or even in the front of their mind, they've got all these other things going on as well. The context is your golden opportunity to grab their attention. So rather than just jumping in with the actions that you took to lead this team to the exceptional result, tell them what the context was, because that's where you can build the drama into your answer. Make clear just how difficult your job was at the time. You know, was the sky falling? What was happening? Where were you? When was this happening? Paint a picture. And you can almost imagine in a movie when they do one of those zooming in actions in the movie and everything just goes boom, and you zoom in and focus. The context is your opportunity to tell your story, to make your example interesting to them. What was the drama that was going on? And then launch into your actions. And the actions here, the A of CAR, should just be maybe 3 or 4 bullet points in logical order of what you did. It wasn't that your boss did this. It wasn't that your agency did this. What were the actions that you took to get to this result? And then the wow results. I say wow because in an interview, if you can get a wow face expression from your interviewer, you're right on track. And the wow, you know this, if you say wow yourself now, you'll feel your eyebrows move up your face. Wow. And that is when someone is impressed with what you're telling them. So you're building up to your wow results, and it's far easier to give a wow answer when you've planned it. So that's really what you're looking for here. And then the fourth yes, Jane, yes?
Feedback I've had sometimes it's about talking about I did this and I did that and aren't I fabulous, but then that's not necessarily being perceived as a team player and giving credit to the team that has helped you do what you've delivered. And some people say that if you talk about the team, you're not confident enough in talking about your own abilities. Do you have a view on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's got to be a balance. It's a classic line in a CV that people say that they can work on their own or equally well with others. And you need to demonstrate both. There's very few jobs where you're going to work in splendid isolation. So it is important to demonstrate this. The important thing though with these competency-based answers is to demonstrate that you have the competence.
Okay.
So
got a couple of questions.
Do delegate or do say where you did delegate, because it's another important field to be able to involve other experts. So if it's involving an external expert or if it's involving different members of your or different departments within your organization, then obviously you give credit where that's due, but talk about also how you led that and how you coordinated that.
Great. Okay, thank you. I've got a couple of questions that have come through, so they're more sort of general questions. So do you want me to hold those until the end?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
Yeah. Okay.
And we'll otherwise we'll lose our sequence here. Okay. But the final part, point 4 here, is to practice delivering your CAR answers in just 2 minutes. So you give a sharp context, logical steps through the actions that you took, and then present your wow results very clearly. And by the way, wow results are best given with numbers or facts. So obviously you need to be aware of confidentialities. You can't be giving away the company secrets. By the way, that's not just fascinating, if you just spill the beans. all that does is immediately tell an interviewer that you're loose-lipped and can't hold on to facts. So, you need to be very careful about the way you give away results and do that in an appropriate way. But 2 minutes and then stop. Okay, very important. Questions to prepare for. Okay, we'll take a quick look through these. There's that classic one. Very often an interview will start with, tell me about yourself. And it's very important to know about how to do that. A great way within 2 minutes is to say something like this. Let me tell you about my academic background. Let me tell you about my work history. And let me tell you about my ambition for where I'm trying to get to. So giving that kind of 3-part, and to give approximately 35 or 40 seconds on each one is a great way of doing that. Why are you interested in the position? Crystal clarity on why you're interested in the position and indeed the company as well. How do you know about the job? And how do you know about the sector being right for you? That's particularly important if you're looking to transition into a different kind of role. So having thought that through, good answers there, of course, involve having spoken to people, having tried to immerse yourself in that, to make that very real so that they know you've got the motivation. What qualifies you? What makes you good enough? And these kind of answers, you want to have multiple points to your answer. Very important to be able to list a number of different elements. Why did you leave your last role? Was it a relationship thing they'll want to know? Did you fit in there? Was there a problem? So the important thing here usually is to have an answer which gives a real clear reason and to explain. Usually it's about wanting to move on. A geographic move is a great one because it takes the pressure off why you were moving and if there was a problem. So sometimes that's a good answer there. How would your last boss describe you? This is a great one. The way to do this, of course, no one's boss thinks that they're perfect. So talk about the things that they liked about what you've done. Think about your job description, your recent reviews, that kind of thing. What is it that they like that you've been doing? And be very clear on that. Talk about the facts, but also talk about the things that you've got as development areas as well, because we need to be very open about that.
So
what
you say something like,
I'm
really good at this, and I want to learn about this next. Is that how you phrase that?
Yeah, it's just very much about, one of the things my boss has always wanted me to do, or sometimes asked for more of, is this, and I've been addressing that in recent months by doing this, and that's been very effective. So, that way you're making clear that you're not perfect, and it's just a great way of giving a real answer rather than going too glossy, because no boss would give something that's too glossy.
Great, thank you.
What are you best at? So here is a list of your strengths. Again, don't give a laundry list. The way to answer this question, yes, it may be what you're best at, but ideally you want to be best at what they're looking to hire for. So look at their list of must-have qualities or skills in the job description and make sure that you are best at some of those things. That's the way that should be done. What have you done beyond your job? So they can be interested in the kind of person that you are. So maybe you do endurance sports, or maybe you're part of a charity. Lots of different things you could do, but people like to see that there's more to you than just your career. It could be family, for example, as well. But try to make sure that you give an example at this point which is relevant and in line with the values of their organisation. So that's quite key. Where else are you applying? It can be a tricky question because especially if you're looking at their competitors. So make sure you've got that done. The importance about preparing for this is to make sure that you're not hearing this question for the first time in the interview. So it's not necessarily about a wrong or a right answer, but it's making sure that you have an answer that you could give if this was asked to you during your interview. Because the danger is, as an interview, you just start talking, and that's when you're a little bit out of control. You're in that interview, sort of the rabbit in the headlights, so to speak. What's the biggest mistake you've made at work? Try to avoid the cliches here. Sometimes you can make a funny story. One of my past mistakes, I'll share this one with you. I was working in the sort of cosmetics and beauty care world. It was in shampoos. I approved a banded pack for ASDA. 25,000 units were made with a spelling mistake on the front. So I was promoting stong hair, would you believe? Not strong hair, but stong hair. Very embarrassing. And every time I went back into the office for the next month, everyone said, "Oh, Sam, how's your hair so stong today?" Very, very embarrassing. But it makes it into your laugh. It is quite a funny example. And it was very, very embarrassing at the time, of course. But it's a way of showing that we are not, we're not perfect. And then, of course, be ready to say, well, what did you do to make sure that didn't happen again? So think about how you make that better. And weaknesses and gaps, always be ready to explain this. No one's perfect. And what you're trying to do, of course, is make sure that the weakness that you talk about is not core to what they're looking for in their job description. And talk about how you're making steps to improve on that, or how you're making it better. It may be, for example, that you have in the past been bad at delegating, but you've been working on that and making sure that you can let other people sort of get the job, so you can release the responsibility. So we'll move into the performance section. This one's a little bit quicker, very important though. Maya Angelou, she said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So think about this for your interviewer, because they may be meeting multiple people on the same day. And if you can make them feel that you are the obvious candidate, it's very, very important. So don't think only about the facts. And this is particularly important because you need to put on a show. Your meeting, your interview is your performance. So be the shining star. I picked the picture here of Cirque du Soleil just because this is your moment. Really see yourself as being on a stage. I want you to remember as well to treat everyone as if they're the most important person in the world. I've worked at places where the person who gets the last say on whether you get hired or not is the receptionist. And you need to really be there to treat everybody well. You don't know if the person that you meet in the bathroom, in the toilets, just prior to your interview, is going to turn out to be your interviewer. So at least a good morning, at least holding the doors for people, a smiling start to the day for the receptionist, even if it's the 8:30 start and you're in there early doors, because you just don't know who's who in that business. So the golden rule is treat everybody as if they're the most important person in the world. You'll be amazed how that will help you. Put yourself in the interviewer's shoes again, really making sure that you are making their life easier. They're trying to fill that role. So rather than being a scared candidate, make sure that you are there as well. See yourself as a consultant. Ask the questions when you go in. Make sure that you are finding out what it is that's wrong. You know, how long has this role been empty? Find out from them as well. You know, what do they need from their ideal candidate? All kinds of interesting ways that you can find out how to shape your answers to really present yourself as a solution to their big problem, which is not having someone to do all of those jobs piling up on that day. And first impressions are nearly everything. As humans, we are so judgmental. And 3 keys to winning the confidence of your interview in the first 6 seconds are this: the eye contact, really making good eye contact, smiling, and the handshake. And I hear this so often from hiring managers. Handshakes can be terrible. You know, either sweaty, you know, wet hands, people emerging from the toilets with wet hands. It's not good. You really need to make sure you've got dry hands. Don't carry your bag or your portfolio in your right hand if you're going to shake hands. Make sure your hand is dry. So, so important. And not a bone sort of shaking and a crushing handshake, but a firm handshake whilst looking somebody in the eye. Those first impressions are so important. And the importance of body language should not be overlooked. You're going to spend a lot of time thinking about the words that you're using for your interview, but actually it's the body language which is so important when it comes to making your communication come across. And very often people don't think about this. So body language is 55% of your total communication. So that does come down to what you're wearing. And sometimes people's dress choices are so bizarre that the expression is, you know, people say that what you are is so loud I can't hear what you're saying. And so those words, 7%, as we see from this particular sort of graphic here, this comes from Professor Albert Morabian, by the way, a very sort of acknowledged piece of research into total communication. The tone of voice and body language, you'll hear me hopefully trying to vary the tone of my voice throughout this presentation. It's so important to communicate in full. And so also don't miss the opportunity to use body language. You may be sitting either at a desk or in a chair at least, but use your hands. And if we talk about that first question, that tell me about yourself, if you're giving that 3-part answer, if you can imagine, let's say, a long sausage roll in front of you, imagine chopping that with 2 hands, chopping the first third, the middle third, and then the final third. And as you give your answer, as you move on to the next part of the answer, move your hands on so that you explain, because your interviewer doesn't know what you're going to say. And the big part about interview communication is when you go into that interview, you know what you want to get across. And they've got some questions. And your job is to fill their, if you like, their empty speech bubble in their head about you. And the way to do that is to make it easy for them to chunk out the information that you're saying. So if you say there's 3 reasons why you're interested in the particular job or the role or the company, count those reasons off on your fingers. Literally show them, this is point number 1. This is point number 2. And when you move on to the final point, this is point number 3. Count those off visibly in front of them. You're helping them to see. You're using body language to help them see how you're moving through your answers.
Sam, somebody's asked, if you don't know the answer to a question that they ask you, is it best to be honest and say you don't know?
Yes, absolutely. If you don't know the answer, then explain that you don't know the answer, but talk about how you would find it out. Don't be thrown by the fact you don't know the answer. And very often, you may not know the answer, but you could have a good idea how you might find out. Because that's what they want. They don't want someone who doesn't know the answer and just sits there waiting for someone to come in and do it for them. What they want is someone who can solve the problem. So talk about how you would go about finding that answer. It's almost like Chris Tarrant, phone a friend. Who would you phone? Because your network, especially as you move through your career, your network can be a valuable part of what you bring. So you perhaps know an expert that you could get involved with to get the right answer.
Okay.
When you're thinking about your...
Sorry,
go ahead.
Because you talked about style and landscape and getting good eye contact. Is there any other way to build a rapport with the interviewer when you walk into the interview room? Because sometimes it can be a little bit awkward.
Yeah, I mean, don't be shy. Be a real person. So don't hold back just on a little bit of chit chat. You don't want to be talking inanely. But have a few things in mind that you could use to open the question. So and that will come from your good company research. Did you see the news about our industry this morning? It's a great one. So if there's been some breaking news, if there's any kind of crisis going on, you really need to be able to answer those kind of questions anyway, especially if it's current affairs. That's an important part of your preparation. But especially if there's something that regards to their company or something that's happened recently. It shows that you're on the ball. So it's a great way to get started.
Thank you.
And then the next things here are really, it's no use saying that you're an enthusiastic person if you come across as being really dull. You've got to be living what you're saying. So, bring it to life with your body language. Smile and try to relax. They want to see someone who can fit into their team. Use the interviewer's name as well. This is particularly important. Not every time you answer, but just 2 or 3 times within the interview. It's helpful just to be able to show that people's names are golden in their mind. It's when someone else mentions your name, even if it wasn't you, if it was perhaps another Jane in the room, Jane, you just turn around because you're so used to hearing that. But it's a way of really focusing their attention as well and bringing them back into your answer. This 2-minute rule, just abide by that one. It gives them the chance to come back into the conversation. It brings the performance into clarity for them as well, because it involves them by bringing them back into the conversation. And at the end, there's sometimes that point where someone will say to you, do you have any questions for me, or is there anything else you would like to tell me? And it's great if you can keep the peace of mind to be able to think right the way through this and say, there's three questions really that they're trying to sort through in their mind as an interviewer. The first one is, can this person do the job? Will this person do the job? And finally, will they be able to fit into our team? The first one is asking about the ability. So do you have the ability to do the job? The second one, the will, is about the motivation. Do you have the motivation to make this work? And the third one is, will you fit in? Have you demonstrated that you'll fit in? And so if you can think through those questions, when they say, is there anything else you'd like to tell me? You think, have I demonstrated that I have the ability? Have I demonstrated that I have the motivation to do this? And have I demonstrated that I'm the kind of person that would fit into this? So that motivation, very, very important about the will, and especially if you're moving into a new sector. How can you demonstrate that you're interested in moving into a sector and that's a place that you would like to stay? So it might be that have you spoken to people in the industry? Have you got yourself some experience? Have you gone and met people? What is it? But make sure you've got some real evidence of that and that you're sharing it. When it comes to the awkward or the tricky questions, really make sure that you've got time and ask for time if you need to think about your answer. So sometimes you may know the answer if you can give it a little thought. So don't be afraid to say, could I take a little time? May I just have a moment? And the answer is always yes. Don't say it for every question, but you can buy yourself some valuable thinking seconds. If you don't know the answer, give a method. And if you didn't hear the question, ask for a repeat. And if you didn't understand the question, ask for them to re-express that. Ask it in a different way. I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure where you're going with that. Could you just ask me that question again, perhaps in a slightly different way, so I can give you the answer that you need? So you're always making it helpful to the interviewer, but don't be embarrassed to be able to answer the right question. Very, very important. When it comes to nerves, something people sometimes have a lot of problems with the performance. Preparation, making sure you've gone through all of these ideas that we're talking about on this call is particularly important. So the more you prepare, the less your nerves will be a problem because you know you've got the answers. And channel that fear into focus. So if you know you're going to be nervous, if you know this is really important, use that to focus your attention in the days and weeks before. Focus by turning off the TV and making your answers clear. Practicing your answers out loud, doing more company research, checking what's happening. Read The Economist that week so you've got some good background details. Check what's happening on the 24-hour news site so that you have an opinion. And things at the moment, Brexit, for example, is on everybody's lips, or what Donald Trump's doing in America. Make sure you've got an opinion on these things, because if they ask you just a random question out of the blue, you should have an opinion. And you could look pretty sort of ill-informed if you haven't got some answers. Hands down flat is a great idea. If you can do this right now, wherever you're sitting, just try putting your hands down flat on your thighs and sitting back, bring your shoulders down and just take a breath in. It's a very calming position. So if you can train yourself after your interview answer, you'll have been using your hands, of course, with your body language. Breathe and bring that back in so that you center yourself. One of the worst things an interview is you start shallow breathing and you're not getting your brain the oxygen that you need to give a good answer. So keep calming yourself at the end of every answer and just come back to that centered position. But hands down flat is a fabulous position. It also stops you fidgeting, which can be a problem for some people with nerves. And then, of course, make sure that it's a two-way meeting. So ask a question. When you ask them a question, they'll talk. It gives you a little bit of space. So don't miss that one as a technique. It can be a great way of buying yourself time. Nearly there now towards the end of this. I know we're running towards the end of the hour. And I just wanted to ask you about, or show you a few questions. As you know, at the end, very often at the end of an interview, they will say, have you got some questions for me? And this is not an exhaustive list. We worked through with our clients at Obvious Candidate with some specific questions. But here's a few ideas. I'm interested in advancing my career. What role might a successful candidate have risen to in 3 years from now? Shows that you're thinking ahead and you're not looking to be a sort of fly-by-night character. You're looking to come in and build a career there. What are you personally looking for in a successful candidate? That's a great one because it gets the interviewer talking about what they're looking for. And this is especially important if you're speaking with the manager of the role or the owner of the company in a smaller business. what are you looking for in a successful candidate? They will then tell you what they're looking for. And you can then make sure that you've demonstrated those elements. So don't just ask the question, make sure you listen and that you can respond to that with examples to show how you are that successful candidate. And of course, what are the prospects for development, training, advancement? If you want to know that, it's a good time to ask. But make sure that you are there to solve their problems, not that you're turning up looking to get your MBA paid for, because that's not a great first impression. May I ask what interested you in working at XYZ? This is a way to get into the culture. It's a way of exploring what's it really like. And then you can follow that one up with, and did it turn out like that? So that you can find out if it's actually an interesting place. And you can say, well, I've heard this from somebody, is this true? And that way you can sort of explore the culture and whether it seems like the kind of place you would like to be working. Questions not to ask up front, where you don't want to be going is, so how much would I be paid? You want to try to avoid the direct questions about the money until they start offering you the job. That's when you get into the negotiation of the details. You certainly want to make sure that you're in a range in advance, and you may be organising that via a headhunter or a recruiter. You need to make sure that your range is in line with their range, otherwise you shouldn't be in the interview in the first place. And the next one here, I've booked 2 weeks in Spain in August. Is it okay if I'm off then? It'll be all right, won't it? You know, so you're not looking to take your holiday before you get started. Not a good first impression. So this is the final bit, the closing of the interview. Very rarely done. The important thing here is to make sure that you confirm your interest and enthusiasm. So many people don't do this. If you decide that at the end of the interview you're even more enthused about the business, they've done a good job at selling you as well as you've been selling yourself to them, tell them that you're interested. Okay? Sometimes the interview, the worst thing, can you imagine this? If you've left the room, the interviewer's thinking, gosh, well, Jane, she was great, but I don't know if she really wanted this. So a great thing to do is to say, Jane, you know, I've really enjoyed meeting you and having this opportunity to demonstrate my appropriateness for the job. I just wanted to let you know I'm really interested and I feel like we make an excellent contribution here. Tell them that. You know, that's just, you can adapt those words, of course, but let someone know that you want this job if that's the case. If you don't say it. And you know you can always withdraw from the interview process. But also confirm next steps and timings. So assuming that you want to go forward to the next level of interview, what would be next? And that's an appropriate time to be asking that to find out the detail of what will be happening and when. So, Jane, what happens next in the process? When will you be making a decision so that you're not following up in an inappropriate way?
Sure.
Final bit, just on the last slide here, the follow-up. This is so important, so overlooked. Huge opportunity to either send a thank you letter. When did you last get one of those? A letter. Or an email if that feels more appropriate for you. But you can make a big impression by sending a timely letter if you can get it into the post that day to arrive the next day. Interest in the job. Briefly repeat your 3 best skills based on what you know they're looking for after the interview, and thank them personally. Pick up on a particular aspect of the interview that interested you and thank them personally for their time. Obviously respond to any of their communications, whether it's via email or phone. Make sure you don't resign until you get the offer. Too many people do this. They think they're on the right track and let their resignation letter go in. Make sure you're not going to get caught out. I've seen this happen too many times where people and companies change decisions. Sometimes even after an offer has been sent. It's terrible. So make sure you've got the contract in place before you're resigning. And the salary negotiation, of course, that will follow on, and it's a whole separate webinar to get into the detail of that, but that follows on as part of the follow-up. So I hope that's been a useful session as we've gone through that. I know we've just slightly overrun on the timing on that. What I wanted to do is just let you know if you are looking for more interview help, we can offer that as well. So sometimes you realize just how much there is to do with interviewing, interview setup and preparation. And that's what we specialize in. We help go into a lot more detail than we'll be able to do on just this quick call. And we've got a special offer here. Now, because this is working in person with me, I can't offer this to everybody, but we have got a special offer for just 4 people from within the FDIN Jobs network. And the idea here is to help you get your coaching that you need to make sure that you've got your interview preparation 100% right. And whether this is about preparing the stories in such a way to impress your interviewer, whether it's about making sure your performance, the third dimension of this, really coming alive and doing your best impression, getting that right, and also maybe doing a mock interview so you can get past those inevitable delivery mistakes before it matters. Make sure you make the mistakes with me so you can get it right when it really matters. What we're doing here is a special offer. This is normally a £374 plus VAT service. We're offering this for just £197 plus VAT. If it's interesting to you, just get in touch, just email me, and we can talk you through the full details. We can completely customize these coaching sessions to fit wherever you're starting from to get you the right interview performance ready. And the biggest reasons that people hire a coach, of course, are to save the frustration. It's 17 interviews, Jane, by the way. That is the to get the next job. That's a lot of interviews. People don't want to have to do that many, so trying to make sure that your interview performance is spot on helps you have to do less and fewer interviews. And of course, start earning faster. If you're going for a $50,000 a year job, get that job 1 month earlier. That's an extra, £4,166 in your bank. That's why this is so important. Job interviews and job processes are very expensive if you're out of work. So trying to get this right, it saves you money by getting this through faster. Let's just move on and we're doing a quick Q&As if we've got any more questions, Jane, that have come through.
We do. Just before we do that, Sam, can we whiz forward to the poll? Because I'm conscious some people may want to go.
Yeah, I want to ask this question.
Yes, super. I've got all your questions here, which I've saved up for Sam at the end. But just in terms of your interest in a potential webinar topic next, there are 3 here, and I think Sam's going to pop a poll up, hopefully, in just a second. So the first one is, what is the hidden jobs market and how can you access it? The second one is how to speed up your job search. And the third one is how to ace your phone or video conference interview. So those are the 3 things we're thinking about running a webinar on next. If you could vote on which one would interest you the most, that would be great.
The votes are pouring in.
Yeah, everything I think is the answer to that, Sam.
Yes, so it looks like just out in front is how to speed up your job search. I'm going to end the poll. Keep voting if you're just about to vote. I'm going to end the poll now. Oh, it's changing. It's changing.
It is. Hidden jobs market.
Yeah, so I'm going to end the poll. You should see the results now on your screen. So, hidden jobs market out in front. It's so important, Jane. This one. It's hugely important. Do you know that more than half of jobs aren't actually advertised? Now, I know you've got a huge selection of them. That's a good start, but there's even more of them out there. So to help people find even more, that's really, really important. And it's about using your network. So we'll get into that. That looks like the clear winner. So we'll look at that. There's some fabulous techniques that we've got that we can help with there. And that's partly to do as well with speeding up the job search. That's obviously a popular answer there as well. A few people obviously interested in phone interviews. If you want more help, by the way, on phone interviews, just get in touch with me directly. I've also got a book on that, which is available on Amazon Kindle, and it's only, I think it's $2.99, so it won't break the bank. But if you want to arrange a coaching session ahead of a phone interview or something like that, we can definitely help, because it's a lot of the same techniques we talked about today, but it's a little bit different because you haven't, unless you're on a video conference, that body language which was 55%, if you remember. So much more goes on to the importance of your tone of voice, the pacing of your answer, to make sure that you get that communication accurately across. So that's important. We'll just put those up there so you've got our contact details. Jane, are there any questions then that anybody might want to ask?
Yes, there are actually, Sam. Hang on a minute. Let me just whiz back through these. Okay.
So by the way, if you do need to leave now, thank you very much for your attention. I think virtually everybody who joined us has stayed right the way to the end. So thank you so much for being here. I hope this has been, as I said, not only interesting, but really useful. We will answer your questions now. If you can hang on, that can be a great way of finding out, because sometimes somebody else has got a great question and it can be helpful to you as well. So we'll try and answer all of the questions.
Okay, so Jay has asked, is it okay to Google or LinkedIn your interviewer before the interview?
Absolutely, yes. You know, you don't want to be a stalker, of course, Jay, or anybody else out there, but it's a very wise thing. And in fact, I've just written a piece for FDIN Jobs, which I think Jane will be publishing this week, when we've talked about exactly getting that interview preparation right. One of the things, there's a plugin you can have on your, if you use Google Chrome, you can get a plugin for Google Chrome called Crystal. And Crystal actually, would you believe, lets you analyze people's personality based on their LinkedIn profile. So you can actually really do some serious probing if you choose to. Very, very interesting ways there to get in. As a minimum, check their LinkedIn profile and find out what jobs they've been doing in the past. Because let's face it, if your interviewer is an analytical person, then you need to make sure that you've got some really strong analysis in your answers, the way that you deliver your answers. And you won't know that if you haven't checked. If they are, on the other hand, a more creative person, of course, you want to be able to bring in more creative examples and demonstrate your creativity. So find out what roles they've done in the past, what kind of jobs they've done, to make sure that you are going to frame your interview answers in the right way. It's a very smart thing to be doing.
Great. And you can do it anonymously or you can do it visibly. Is it
Absolutely.
good?
That's right. You can go through, and I think it's actually quite flattering and shows a switched on candidate if the candidate has viewed a LinkedIn profile in advance. But if you choose to do it in a stealth mode, yes, you can go into the settings in your LinkedIn and you can either go completely anonymously or semi-anonymously to have a look at their profile that way if you don't want them to know. But I think it's not a bad thing, and you can even tell them, I had a quick look at your LinkedIn profile, I was fascinated to see that you were at XYZ company first. How is it different working here? You know, that way you can use it as that sort of initial conversation starter. So yeah, definitely do that research.
Lovely. And someone's asked, is it best to ask questions at the end of an interview, or is it okay to sort of ask them as it goes through or midway through the interview as well?
Great question. I would say, you know, be confident on this. You need to read your interviewer. You know, if you've got someone who takes that very strict and a very authoritative interviewing role, they may not want you to ask questions. But I would say that these days that's a pretty rare attitude to come across in an interview. And the answer for me is far better. I think the more senior you are, it's essential for you to be starting by asking questions. If you go into any meeting these days, you know, think about what you do, that you don't sit until the end and ask all the questions right at the very end. The important thing in a meeting is to understand the other person's position at the very beginning. The more detail you can get by going in and asking a few well-framed questions, the better you can give your answers right the way through. Think of yourself in this interview as a consultant solving problems. If you can understand the problem they've got with this job opportunity, which is an empty space at the desk, someone who's not doing that job, how long has it been? It may have been 6 months that this team has not had somebody in this role. They may be desperate for you to fill that. And if you can ask a few questions in advance and at the start of the interview, it will hugely impact the examples that you can give and how you can really help them by positioning yourself as the solution to their problem.
Great. Okay, thank you. And I've got another question here, which is, was it disappeared to, going back to the, this is from Alicia, going back to your leadership examples. What happens if you haven't been in a position of leadership before? Is it possible to talk about how you display these competencies in an alternative way, or will it miss the mark?
Well, first off, don't lie. You know, I think that's, you know, I'm not suggesting from that question that the person was suggesting they would, but, you know, the truth is the best in any kind of part of the interview process. Think the truth. If you realize you've got a weakness when it comes to something which is one of the core things they're looking for, do something about it in advance. So the very best thing you can do, if you know you're lacking on leadership experience, put yourself in harm's way, either in your current job or if you're a student while you're at university. It's amazing how you can step up and do some leading very, very quickly to give yourself some examples. If you're at work in a particular job, step up and volunteer for a project. Just put yourself in harm's way a little bit extra, even this week. You'll be able to get some leadership experience and to build on that. It's about stepping up. Think of leadership always as 3 E's. The first one is envisioning a better future. The second one is engaging the right people to be able to make a difference on that. And the third one is the E of execution, to make sure that that gets done. Either doing it yourself or delegating to others or third parties to get that done. So lots of ways you can show leadership and demonstrate it. And then it's about being able to tell the story. So again, in the interview coaching, we talk about how to really demonstrate these skills. But you can, don't make stuff up, but do definitely talk about things. And if it's an external, maybe you led somebody out of work, that's far better than saying, oh, well, I haven't got any examples from the workplace, because leadership doesn't have to just be in the office.
Brilliant. Okay, I've just got a couple of quick questions which I'll answer. Corner, do we know when the next webinar will be? We haven't confirmed the date yet, but if you register on the FDIN site for the news, you will we'll be sending out details of that as soon as it's confirmed. And Anna, I think we've got an answer to your question now, which is yes, Sam does offer these services. Obviously, he's explained what they are here, and I'll make sure he gets in touch with you directly after that. So I think we are all done here now. So if you have any feedback on this specific webinar, please email me, jane.paine@fdin.org.uk. If you've got any questions about interview performance, please email sam@obviouscandidate.com. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry we ran over slightly, but there were so many interesting things to say. Sam, thank you so much. That was absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed it and learned a lot as well. We will be sending out a link to this webinar shortly once we've edited it. And please do check that again for when our next one will be. Sam, any?
I would say thank you all very much for being there. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for your interaction. It makes it hugely more or easier to do this. Sometimes when you're talking out there to nobody, that can be very challenging. You've been a brilliant audience. I really appreciate that. So thank you very much. We'll stay on in the chat room a little bit and answer a few more of these questions. I see a few more coming in. But yeah, if you've got more questions, you can of course email me. You've got the email address there. And there's so much to getting this right. Obvious Candidate, we're very passionate about making sure that our clients really get not just the next job, but the right job. So often you've got plenty of experience. You're looking to now move on to the right next role. And there's a lot to getting that right. So if we can be of help, Jane's got so many job opportunities with FDIN Jobs, and hopefully we can provide you with the skills that you need to really land that job that you want. So good luck with your process. It's been a pleasure. So cheerio from here in Thailand. I'll be back in the UK for the next one. So I hope you've heard me okay from out here.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody, and good night.